So, welcome to the Promethean Tides podcast. I'm General, and this is Breaker. Hello, Breaker.
Keep my wife's name out your fucking mouth!
Okay, alright, Breaker, I'll be sure to do that. I'm sorry if that joke offended you. So yeah, that happened this week. There was a whole bunch of uproar, I suppose. A lot of attention paid to it. A lot of different takes.
A lot of nuclear fucking hot takes.
I'm curious, Breaker. We haven't talked about this at all. What was your take? Who was the most justified or unjustified?
That was 100% Will Smith's fucking fault. There is no way possible to justify that on his side. And all these Twitterati and bullshit talking heads trying to justify it's like, he was standing up for women. He was standing up for his wife. It's white supremacy because black people just fight all the time. Get used to it, honky. All that bullshit is bullshit. It was a fucking G.I. Jane joke. Like, Chris Rock could have royally fucking destroyed both of them comedically. But he told, like, one of the tamer jokes he could fucking think of, and that was enough to piss Will Smith off enough to go up and smack him on national television with millions of people watching.
Okay, so let me play devil's advocate for a second here, then. Look, Chris Rock said something that was potentially upsetting to Will Smith. Ergo, public assault is justified. There.
Aside from the fact that Will Smith's initial reaction when the camera panned to him and his wife, Will Smith was laughing at it and not really thinking anything of it, and Jada Pinkett Smith just like you could see her face just turn sour and her eyes were slowly shifting over to Will in the bitch you better do something look of black woman doom, and that's when the bullshit popped off.
So I thought I think it made no sense for Will Smith to slap Chris Rock. I don't think that's appropriate. Obviously, you should not assault someone because they said something that made you feel bad. But I have two takes that are kind of outside of that specific point, and that is number one. I'm not sure if it was real or not. I know that some people have been saying that it was staged. Some people have been saying no, it was 100% legit. I don't know. Like, I'm not sure. But what I can say is that it'll probably increase the viewer ratings for the Oscars next year. So, good for the Oscars. And
well, as far as the stage aspect of this goes, I'll give you like a really good counterpoint as to why that's most likely not the case. Do you think that woke progressive Hollywood would quote unquote stage anything, one, that's actually that good, and two, that depicts two black males in a physical confrontation on national TV in front of millions of people, when the stereotype of black males is that they're violent? Do you think woke progressive Hollywood is going to put out that image?
Maybe. I don't know. It could be that they just really wanted to get viewership, and maybe it's more believable if it's a black man being violent against another black man. Because statistically, it's more likely. But
well, yes, but statistics and facts aren't real to the woke progressive. So that's not the argument. I'm thinking from their perspective. Like, you're thinking logically, I'm thinking wokishly.
Yes, the wokish perspective. So okay, all right. People have different ideas about whether it was staged or not. I don't know. I can't tell. But more importantly, I don't care that much. And I think that that's really the best part of this, because I think that what happened was, for about a week, all the people that usually really care about politics but don't actually care, they're they're kind of focused on politics in the same way that like your average person would be focused on wanting the Pittsburgh Steelers to win the Super Bowl this year or whatever. That type of person was then focused on the slap instead of all of the other political stuff. And it was like, just for a brief moment, it felt like the actual political discussions were just a little bit higher quality as a result. It's like all of these the people that used to be obsessed with celebrity gossip and tabloid stuff over the past like 10, 15 years have moved over to the gossip of politics, and then just for a brief moment they all went back to the celebrity bullshit, and it was actually great. I think that's an amazing thing. You know what I think we need? I think that we need more celebrity drama. I think that there hasn't been enough drama with the celebrities. That's why people got bored with it and they had to start focusing on politics. But that's not where we want them focusing. We don't want them concentrating their dumb brainwaves on trying to solve fucking problems. So I think that we need all the celebrities to get into more scandals, more drama. I want all the attention on the celebrities. I want like 90% of the people that are currently focused on politics to focus on fucking anything else. And I think that would be awesome. So I support the slap. Whether it was justified or not, I'm glad it happened.
Well, that's one perspective on it. Now that you're talking about the celebrity, pageantry, tabloidy, gossipy crowd of people, which is a lot of people, especially in the Western world, of all people recently, Tim Pool had a surprisingly spicy take by his standards on this. And he said on a recent podcast when they were discussing this, that the whole slap debacle, Tim Pool said something along the lines of, all of these people that are so invested in this celebrity gossip shouldn't really be voting, and they should instead vote on, like, the People's Choice Awards and more celebrity and video game and entertainment-based shit, and leave actual politics to people who know how to point to Ukraine on a map.
I think I must have missed when Tim Pool said that, but I agree with him. Yeah, absolutely. We need more slaps. That's my conclusion. I want more slaps.
Even like the made up slaps, even like the super subterranean tabloid, is Elvis Presley still alive on the mothership orbiting to Beirut? That level of fucking celebrity insanity, that has also shifted over into politics with the Trump was basically a fucking proxy thrall of Vladimir Putin himself, and was an agent of Russia while president. Like, the conspiracy shit needs to come back. It needs to be targeted at aliens and Nibiru, and I don't know, fucking Elvis is still alive somewhere, yeah, right, on Mars, I don't know. It needs to go back to that instead of fucking politics, because that's also fucking everything up.
Well, here's the thing, man. Donald Trump is simultaneously a puppet of Russia, but also, the QAnon stuff was correct. He did take over the military, and in 2 weeks... Just wait 2 more weeks, and don't worry about it. He'll be president again. I
recently heard from a friend of mine that actually believes that shit. That I don't remember who it was. I know it's not true, so I didn't really keep it in my mind. But she said that someone, according to Q, had recently been hung, like some high-ranking political person, and the person that you see on TV is some type of body double or clone. I don't fucking know. Basically, QAnon is like SCP universe levels of convoluted at this point. Like, I would actually believe that the actual SCP organization is real before I believe anything fucking Q says.
Well, okay, so before Joe Biden got elected, there was a lot of energy behind the QAnon stuff, and I looked into it a bit because I was curious, and I went on to the good old 4chan poll and saw what they were saying about it. And they said, okay, guys, don't worry. Joe Biden will not get into office. Trump has this. There's a secret military coup. Hillary Clinton has already been arrested. Joe Biden is currently arrested. They're just saving face, whatever. And then, it's been a while, and Trump still isn't president. So I'm pretty sure that whatever the fuck they were on about is not correct. But there are some people that still believe it.
Well, here's the thing: you're just not trusting the plan enough. Here's what's actually happening.
Yes.
Donald Trump is still president. The Joe Biden that we see is literally a reptilian humanoid clone that subsists solely off the scent of Pert shampoo radiated from the scalps of young girls. And Donald Trump is still president, but he literally put on the Warhammer 40k God Emperor armor and is fighting what are called the DOMs, the Deep Underground Militaries, and Donald Trump is single-handedly Davy Crockett nuclear warheading underground military bases, which is causing all these random earthquakes around the world these days. If you're wondering where those earthquakes are coming from, it's underground Warhammer 48 God Emperor Trump literally blowing them up with portable nuclear warheads.
Okay, now here's the thing. Here's the real question here, Breaker, because I believe all of that. But if Trump is God Emperor, that means that there are the four major gods of ruin, right? You got Nurgle, Slaanesh, you got Tzeentch, and you got Khorne, right? So which of the ruinous gods is Biden worshiping? I think. Okay, because it's either he's worship. This is my guess. I don't know, but my guess is that he's way too demented to be anywhere near Tzeentch. I think he doesn't seem like kind of a tough guy, so he has nothing to do with Khorne. Nurgle, maybe Nurgle, because I think that Joe Biden wants to live longer. But I think it's got to be Slaanesh. His love of sniffing little girls. I think that's who we would worship.
Well, if you remember the drag queen story hour, Slaanesh itself literally showed up to a drag queen story time at a library, and it was literally Slaanesh in the fucking flesh. So it makes perfect sense to me. I think
I haven't heard about this. You're joking. Is that a real thing?
I mean, look up drag queen story time on Google Images, and one of the first images that comes up will literally be Slaanesh reading to children at a library.
Hold on. I gotta. Are you sure that that's not just a? Oh my god! It is Slaanesh. Oh my god! It's literally Slaanesh. What the fuck? Oh my god!
As we know, obviously Nurgle is Anthony Fauci. I am the science.
yeah. I guess no. Anthony Fauci is either Nurgle or Tzeentch. I'm not sure who Khorne would be though. Obviously, the Democrats in general want to get into more war. Actually, maybe Hillary Clinton would be Khorne. She really enjoys blowing motherfuckers up.
We came, we saw, he died.
Yeah. So really, actually, the Democratic Party is actually kind of like chaos undivided. If you think about it. So that's
the Democratic Party is literally a fucking chaos gods incarnate, and the avatars of the chaos gods fighting on the earth for dominion of the other world.
So, okay, so this was something I was thinking about this week, right? So, when I look at the Democrats, at least here in America, the Democratic Party, the left in general, the culture that exists, that they're developing, their thoughts, their ideologies, all of this, I look at them. And I can almost kind of see like a demon behind all of this, right? Like an actual chaos demon. I can almost kind of see it. Like I can see how this will lead to totalitarianism and how it will lead to human suffering and how, bro, I just want to be left alone, but they're not going to want to leave me alone, and it's going to turn into bad things. Kind of like how I'm sure that the actual government of China could see the problem with the communist revolutionaries and how that was going to cause a whole bunch of human suffering and death, and then the actual genuine government of China then had to move to an island. But here's my question, right? So I think that I can kind of see the demon behind the left. And I don't think that they can see it because maybe they're not looking behind them; they're just facing forward, against the right. But my question is, what if they can see a demon behind me that I'm not seeing? Right? What if the right also has a demon? Now I can't see it. But maybe that's because I'm blinded to it. Do you think that maybe there could be a demon behind the right here? I mean, I could think of some ideas. Like, obviously, if you go super extreme and get racial with it, you have Nazis, and that's potentially a demon. But it doesn't really seem like that threatening of a demon. Nazis aren't really that popular in right wing America. So, do you think there might be a demon that we're missing?
Well, speaking of demons, I just have to do this. Like, Lord, what should I do? Destroy the child. Corrupt them all. This is their plan, people. These are demons.
Was that an Alex Jones impression?
Pretty much. Everyone says it's one of the best Alex Jones impressions ever. But that aside, I'm old enough to remember when the rights demon was much more prevalent in mainstream society than it is these days.
Oh, it was the fucking Bible thumpers from the Bush administration. Assholes.
Something akin to that, yes, but they were mostly just apparatchiks of fucking big business and multinational corporations and blah, all that fucking bullshit. One of the best ways to notice the unseen demons is comedy. Just take some of the best comedians of the left and the right. Like, take, Steven Crowder on the right, and then take... It's hard to think of an actual funny left-wing comedian these days.
Oh,
maybe Jimmy Dore.
Amy Schumer, yeah.
Oh, fuck.
Hilarious.
Well, her cunt is the demon in that scenario with how much it smells and how much
that's
she picks
Nurgle.
her own hair
No,
out.
that's Nurgle.
Yeah. Well, obviously. I think Nurgle is inside of her cunt, and her cunt whispers into the ear of Bill Clinton every night, destroy the child. I'll do it, Mama Nurgle. Come here, little kid.
Okay.
I don't. A rodeo ride.
I don't think that Amy Schumer is the best comedian that the left has to offer, but I also can't...
I was thinking like Jimmy Dore,
is Jimmy Dore really that much on the left anymore? He seems
okay. Let's say a much better example is someone like Bill Maher.
Bill Maher is actually Bill Maher is a decent example, but even he, within like the past year, has been really going against the left as well. I want someone who's like establishment left, like a Stephen Colbert. I mean, everyone knows that guy's absolutely hilarious.
And this is the problem. They're not fucking funny. They're just religious mouthpieces.
Yes.
Because they're not. This is why they don't see the demons, because they've lost their comedic edge. Like all the mainstream, like lefty mainstream comedians that aren't constantly criticizing the left, like someone like Bill Maher is doing. Bill Maher's political positions haven't changed. The left has just gone fucking insane. He even says that himself. And Jon Stewart also used to be Jon Stewart has always been more of like a centerish left type of person when you really think about it. Overall.
I mean, up until his new show, The Problem with Jon Stewart, because that's gone pretty woke pretty fast.
Well, there you go. I guess you got to pay for that fucking beach house somehow, don't you, Jew boy? Oy vey. But anyway.
Okay. So, I think
the mainstream left has lost all their fucking comedic edge. They can't laugh at themselves, and when they try to make jokes about their political opposition, they're not even jokes. I first started to notice this with Kyle Kalinske on Secular Talk. He would put up these Alex Jones clips, and he would just stand there staring into the camera like a fucking retarded mouse and gesturing with his hands up to the little Alex Jones clip in the corner, not even attempting to actually make a joke, just, oh, look at silly man, he believes in conspiracies. Conspiracies funny. Like, not even attempt at making a joke at all, just like, look at silly man, he say silly thing. Like the ultimate Gruck brain shit.
I mean, wasn't it Alex Jones himself that said, hey, I'm kind of retarded?
I'm kind of retarded.
Well, I mean, because he is kind of retarded, but also he's genuinely funny. Like, that's the that's the thing about the left when the establishment left, right? Obviously, there are people on the left that can be genuinely humorous, but when you get into like the people that are the establishment religious dogma, they are about as funny as as a Christian pastor trying to do stand-up comedy in the 2000s. Like, it's just it doesn't work.
They just say mainstream left political talking point. It's not even set up as a joke, and then the audience, instead of laughing, just claps.
Well, that's what you call clapter, right? You clap and then you go ha 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 ha.
Oh, golf clap. Ha, ha,
I
ha.
understood that reference. Ha ha.
It's also very similar to like a religious setting where the pastor says a religious thing, and then the audience is just like, "That's right, preach at him!" Clap, clap, clap.
It's that's pretty much the Stephen Colbert style of show. Also the what's the other one? Who is it? Jimmy Fallon? Is that who's on air? I don't pay attention to these things. But it doesn't matter who's on air.
Fallon was actually one of the better ones that actually tried to make even-handed jokes.
Conan O'Brien was decent. I kind of enjoyed Conan O'Brien. I mean, I didn't watch very much of him, to be fair, but...
I was like a super Conan O'Brien mega fan a long time ago, and he was like... He actually did make fun of everybody, left and right.
So, if you look at... So, like, Stephen Colbert, funny, incredibly humorous, just... gift of comedy man for the left. On the right, when it comes to like a late night comedy show, I think the best example would be Greg Gutfield, I think his name is. And I've actually seen some of his stuff on YouTube, and it's actually made me go haha and like a genuine like a little chuckle or whatever, and that's not bad. And it isn't even because I am agreeing with what he's saying. It's because actually sometimes he can produce a joke that genuinely makes you go haha instead of clapping. So, yeah, I mean, I guess overall the right is doing better on comedy than the left is overall.
It's funny with me. I've watched so much comedy for so many years that it takes a lot to make me genuinely break out uncontrollably laughing, and there's very few people nowadays that can even get me close to that. Like, one of them is probably going to be Gilbert Gottfried. Gilbert Gottfried! Like, that guy could always make me laugh somehow. Dave Chappelle, occasionally, but not as much as he used to, and it has less to do with the political stuff and more to do with, like, I'm so used to his comedic styling and timing and beats that I can kind of telegraph exactly what he's going to do, so the jokes never land with me, because I watched him so much.
I actually have never been a big fan of Gilbert Gottfried. I would say Dave Chappelle is definitely funnier than Gilbert Gottfried. Like, his voice is just so obnoxious, man.
You remember the famous French actor Juicy Smouye. And this nigga came out and he said, I was attacked in Chicago by Trump supporters. And why doesn't the black community have my back? What he didn't realize is that we did have his back. We all kept our mouth shut because we knew that this nigga was clearly lying.
Yeah. That was a good joke. I think my favorite joke that he did, it was like he said, "Look, it is a woman's right to do whatever she wants with her body. You know, if a woman wants to get an abortion, she can, and men, we have to be quiet about that. But also, I should have the right to not have to pay child support. I mean, shit, bitch, if you can kill him, I should at least be able to abandon the fucker."
There was another joke he told a longer time ago than that. It's about like, fellas, look, ladies, they can dress however they want. Don't ever forget that. Just because they dress a certain way doesn't mean they are a certain way. Never forget that. But ladies, you have to admit that shit is confusing. If you're running around out there in a hoe's uniform, and I come up and treat you like a hoe, and then you get offended, it's like, oh, just because I dress this way does not mean that I'm like... I don't go around in a policeman's uniform, and people come up to me and say, oh, thank God you're here, we need some help. It's like, oh, just because I dress like a police officer. Don't run around wearing a hoe's uniform if you're not a hoe.
Yeah. Yeah, no, he said he has a lot of good jokes, but the last stand-up special that he did, it was okay. I forget the name. It was the most recent one. I forget the name of it, but it was all right. I think it came across more like a. It was halfway between a comedy special and a TED Talk, honestly, and. Mostly, I just want to listen for the comedy special. I'm not so interested in the TED Talk aspect of it, but, you know, artistic choice.
The George Floyd one he did was nothing but 100% TED Talk, just talking about George Floyd.
Oh, yeah, I mean, I don't even classify that as a comedy special, because that was just...
It wasn't.
Yeah.
It was just a speech, basically.
Yeah, that was probably not the best work on the part of Dave Chappelle, but... I mean,
well, at least it wasn't billed as a comedy show, and everyone knew kind of what they were coming for.
Yeah. I watched the whole thing. I didn't agree with everything, but I watched it, and there was a couple good chuckles in there, as far as I can remember.
It was like a speech told by a very good comedian that knows exactly where to put really good jokes.
So, yeah, I guess, the left, they're not that good at comedy, I guess, is kind of a conclusion of that. But to go back to my original point, is there a demon, lurking behind, let's say, so I'm a right-wing libertarian type. I want, my stance is hippity hoppity, get off my property. So, is there a demon lurking behind that? Do you think that there's something evil that the left is seeing that maybe I'm not? Maybe a reason why they would be super opposed to my beliefs.
Probably what they're seeing is, from their perspective, a supreme lack of compassion and empathy.
I mean, there's memes where like something, child slavery and your backyard nuke, and also roads don't exist anymore. Like, I mean, those are very funny, but I mean, in terms of like an actual genuine evil.
Well, if you're being judged by the left from their perspective on libertarianism, what they would be see as a complete disregard for empathy and human compassion, but in a weird type of way. There's ways in which a freer market that's closer to something like laissez-faire could be more philanthropic and more charitable, if you think about it. Because you remember fucking John D. Rockefeller? Remember, like, all those titans of industry in the early 1900s that have buildings named after them and whole fucking streets named after them for a fucking reason? Because they contributed so much to fucking society. Remember those guys?
Well, so my stance is that I think that most of the time when the government tries to intervene into the market, it actually ends up causing more suffering. I think that Lyndon B. Johnson's Great Society was mostly a failure, and I think that welfare has done almost nothing to benefit the African American community. In fact, I think
it's made everything worse.
Right. I think that it was like a hug, but the hug is actually like it just slowly gets tighter and tighter and tighter until it suffocates you. It feels nice at first, but then it starts breaking your spine, and then you're like, oh, I don't know if this hug was such a good idea. That's what I think of it like. A good old government hug.
There's also a thing with like government welfare programs that has another effect that is not often talked about. It's government subsidized welfare and charity, if you even want to call it that, is bizarrely inhuman and impersonal in a way that a philanthropist's donations to their community and broader society couldn't by design. As you see all these government things around you and all these government buildings that are just this conglomeration of sameness, and the architecture is all this postmodern goo, faceless, seamless, fucking square, brutalist bullshit.
Whoa. Brutalism is not postmodern. At least I don't think it is.
There's a way in which it kind of is profoundly inhuman.
Oh yeah, it is. It is inhuman. I think that's kind of by design. Like, it's supposed to make. I think that the whole point of like brutalist architecture, you see it in both the United States and like the Soviet Union. The whole point is that it's supposed to be non-frivolous, very inhumane, and make the government seem more like an entity than something that is made by man.
Exactly, and that's the fucking problem, because according to like the types of communist societies where that type of architecture is really popular, in the highest, most idealized form of communism, the government isn't even supposed to exist at all. But we know how reality actually works. So there was like this double irony in brutalist architecture. It's like, hey, the formless, shapeless government entity that totally isn't headed by that one guy that you cannot criticize in any way, shape, or form, or you disappear. That's totally what's happening here.
I love government so much. It continues to make sense, and it always justifies its existence. It's just one of the most amazing things, I swear to God.
And also, the government sort of isn't supposed to be this inhumane, postmodern goo that just kind of exists as this disjointed, parallel life form background process over all of us. There is very much supposed to, especially even in like American democratic system, there's supposed to be this kind of inclination that anyone can be voted into office, like anyone can run for political office. And I think the only restrictions on running for president, you have to be 35 years old and born in America, and that's basically it. Like, from the inception of America, it never said that a woman couldn't run for president. It never said that people of certain racial backgrounds couldn't run for president.
Hell, you don't even have to own land. You had higher qualifications to be a voter than to run for president.
Yeah, you could run for president and not even be able to vote for yourself.
Yeah, that's kind of it's a neat system, I think.
So that's supposed to be a very human and personal system. But you notice over time as how it's all just mixed up in this revolving door of used car salesmen mixed with postmodern churning goo that never seems to get anything substantially done. Like, all the Democrats have been bitching about black inequality and black poverty for, well, how long has it been? Like almost 80 fucking years? And motherfucker, you motherfuckers have been in power so many fucking times where you could have done something about this. Why is this even still a problem? Why is this like historical injustice and racism that you all seem very passionate about and intent upon changing? How have you been talking about this for the last 80 fucking years and nothing has happened?
Well, it's also one of those things where it's like, if you look at the states and the cities that have the greatest amounts of like wealth inequality, the greatest amount of like police brutality or whatever, like all these different things that the left complains about, the most pollution, it's all from states and cities that are run by Democrats. It's like literally all of it. All the things that they shout about as being problems, it's all in places that are run by Democrats. It's it's just one of those ironies.
And then you go to China, which is supposed to... I don't think the political models of the Western world even fit on China in like the left-right dichotomies, especially nowadays, and I don't think they ever have, in like a one-to-one correlation sort of way. But you go to China, which is supposed to be... And you'll hear these stupid Westerners like fucking Vaush and some random YouTube talking head communists talking about how great China is.
That's pronounced
and you go to China.
It's pronounced Vaush, not Vaush.
Vaush.
Okay. All right.
Right wing bad.
It can
communists.
We can call him Vouch. That's fine. Like I don't vouch for this guy. All right.
Well, there you go. Then you go to China, and you remember that famous picture of the Beijing Olympics where you've got like this fucking ski jumper, and the background is just a nuclear power plant that looks like something from the fucking Simpsons?
Who the fuck decided that? What the hell was that? I saw that shit, man. The only thing that I can think is that some Chinese official was like, hey, I want the rest of the world to know that we have nuclear power plants, and they were like, okay, well, let's fucking set the ski jump up next to a nuclear power plant then. Like, that's the only thing that I can think of that must have happened.
Hey, look at our nuclear power, look at our progress, look at our great communist / autocratic fascist / oligarchic society and what it can do. Yay, look at the bombed out fucking nuclear power plant with fucking patches and smog and random shit in the background. Hey, progress.
Dude, they clearly weren't like it was some fucking Chinese official that just said, no, put the ski jump next to the nuclear power plant without considering any of the optics.
Well, I'll tell you what it was. It was a Chinese autocrat that if you even hinted at disagreeing with them, they could do things to you, up to and including things that would make you wish they killed you.
I mean, at least here in America, like, someone would have said, like, hey, you know, we should put the fucking ski jump next to our, I don't know, recycling plant. And then someone would go, that thing's ugly as fuck. You sure that you want to put it next to the recycling plant? At least there could be some back and forth. Like, maybe
well, if you want to show how green and natural and progressive we are, why don't put the ski jump next to a green lush mountain?
No. You put it next. No, this in. Next time the United States hosts the Winter Olympics, you put the ski jump right next to a whole bunch of those, right next to a giant wind farm, right? And then the skiers will have to dodge the fucking fans, or else they'll get decapitated. That's
wait a minute. The wind farms in America are all in places where they freeze in the wintertime for the most part. So if you put them next to the fans of the Winter Olympics, they would all just be frozen stiff.
Oh, okay. Maybe the Summer Olympics then. I don't know.
Yeah, the Winter Olympics, you put them next to like the Colorado Smoky Mountains. Hey, look at the natural beauty of this park, and look at how green everything is. Yay, look at how clear blue the sky is. Woo, that would make a little more sense.
I mean, I'm pretty sure that China has, like, mountains and greenery and shit that would just look nicer than a nuclear... I don't know who... Someone decided that. Some official decided that, and no one questioned him.
Yeah, exactly. And they do have those green and lush and natural-looking places, but they're either, like... because China has, like, a really weird governance around the more rural and farmer agrarian areas, where the people around there go by the old Chinese adage, the mountain is high and the emperor is far away. And those fucking Chinese hillbillies actually do have guns, believe it or not, in China. And the Chinese government is just like, okay, these people make the food. So if we try and, like, thumb their eye too much with our autocracy, it's going to be a whole bunch of bloody shit, and we're going to have a Mao situation all over again where we killed all our fucking farmers because they dared rise up against us. So we'd rather just look the other way on this. And then you get the Chinese rednecks with AK-47s.
They sound like pretty based people.
And they're probably the most extreme libertarian. They would make you look like fucking Vaush with how libertarian they are.
Yeah, they sound pretty based. I think in the Philippines, kind of in the opposite direction, they have something called mountain communists. So in the mountains in the Philippines, there are just like a whole bunch of communists. They just took over the mountains, and they're way high up there, and it's difficult for them to get resources because you're on a mountain. But they just chill up in the mountains, and they're called the mountain communists. And the Filipino government, even though it's not communist itself, doesn't want to do anything about the mountain communists because I guess that it would be too much labor to actually deal with them. Like it's not worth the cost of dealing with them. So they just let a whole bunch of mountain commies just live up in the mountains, and that's just a thing in the Philippines.
Are you sure those are communists, or are those just Buddhists?
They
sound like Buddhists.
A Buddhist is just someone who really aggressively has a fetish for licking boots. Yeah, you know, I mean, I guess communists are a subclass of Buddhists, but I think that they are commie-style Buddhists.
Well, we're like religious, practicing, cloistered Buddhists kind of just live like communists anyway. The difference is they don't come around fucking with you.
You were saying Buddhists, like
yeah.
BDD. I thought you were saying bootists, like people who love licking boots, like Buddhism.
Yeah, you see, there's your comedy. I think you knew exactly what I said, but you were just playing the... See, there's the secret to finding the demons. You just got to make fun of everything. That's why, in the meta-modern perspective, when everything becomes so steeped in hyper-abstracted ironies that any and everything can be made comedic, you start to see how, like, the bare bones of how all ideologies, left, right, up, down, whatever ideologies are put together, and everything, just like my avatar picture, where everything is just skeletonized and ley lines and an eternal sun shining brutally in the fucking far horizon. Like, when everything is taken apart down to that level, you get to see all, like, the most fundamental intersections of all of this shit, and it gives you a lot more fucking perspective on what's actually happening here.
You're saying you like to see things abstractly.
I kind of don't have much choice in the matter, because the more you think about all these ideologies and philosophies for a really long time, and you're just kind of steeped in that mindset for extended periods of time. I'm not sure everyone would do this, because I'm also simultaneously very skeptical and analytical. So when I look at something that, as from a purely skeptic perspective, I should just be able to do the fedora bro atheist katana bullshit and say, oh, my skepticism says blah. But then it's like, okay, my skepticism might say blah, but is there anything of actual coherence here? And you'll thing that from a purely skeptical, secularist, atheistic perspective you would find, and that's how you know that atheism can take on the qualities of an actual religion if you're not paying very close attention to it.
Yeah, it absolutely can. As I guess, technically speaking, an atheistic agnostic myself, I find myself loathing most atheists, and you know, I think that the thing that you really say to an atheist is, Catholics have more babies than atheists, so why is your idea better?
Well, then they would probably come across something like, You're saying what is best in life is to merely survive and procreate like a mere animal, not realizing that by their saying that, they're injecting a very high level of idealistic value judgment into that. By once proclaiming that there is a best in life that does not directly comport with biological human reality, they're already proclaiming that there is a transcendental abstraction themselves, but they're not directly aware that they're doing that.
That is exactly what they do. They've imported all of these ideologies, I guess from various sources of what it means to be human, when actually, if they're going to be a scientific, atheistic individual, then at the end of the day, man, like, fucking survive and have babies. Like, that's literally the purpose to your life. And they're like, no. I want to be an atheist who doesn't have any children. How does that make any fucking sense?
Well, then they'll pull like some type of Malthusian, consequentialist, utilitarian, ethical argument about, well, you know, the world is overpopulated, so if I have children, they become anti-natalist nihilists, which is an even more caustic and hot-burning form of ideology than the Christianity that they proclaim to not be proponents of.
Yeah, pretty much. And I've talked to enough nihilists and postmodernists on Discord to know that fuck those people, I guess, in general. Jesus Christ, I hate them. So
it gets to the point where you're literally just talking to a religious zealot, and then they'll say to you, usually these type of internet nihilists in the modern day and age, especially like the lefty kinds, are very anti-determinist, weirdly enough.
They are. It makes no sense.
Yeah, but then they say on the other side of their mouth they're nihilists. And if you remember Nietzsche was a absolute hardcore determinist. And to make that type of nihilism even coherent and functional, you have to be a hardcore determinist, because without the eternal recurrence, the most wretched thought, you can't come to that position of nihilism. It's metaphysically necessary that you have something like an eternal recurrence that is inescapable. Like, you can have a life and a death where it's eternally over, and you can have a cycle of reincarnation where it's possible to escape, or an afterlife. You have to have the Nietzschean eternal recurrence where everything we're doing right now will be repeated infinitely down to the most molecular details.
Well, that's depressing.
And that's a lot more caustic and hot-burning of an ideology than just regular garden variety Christianity. Even Catholicism isn't that hot.
Nietzsche made a couple good points. I've never been a big fan of Nietzsche myself. I understand. I understand the will to power. I get that, and I understand that he was taking issue with the fact that God is dead, that humanity was moving beyond a god, and that he was recognizing that that was actually going to be a major problem. I understand that, and like his solution was, you know, man's will to power. Eventually, everyone can become an Ubermensch, but. You know, I just honestly, I don't think that I don't think it's that good of a solution. I think that if some people can become Ubermensch, you know, maybe that's true. Maybe Elon Musk is an Ubermensch, but I don't think that it's within the. I don't think it's within the capacity of most humans to become an Ubermensch. I think that ultimately, most human beings try to derive some sort of value from the universe that is not based off of themselves and their quest to become stronger. I think, you know, different types of people require different types of things. I don't think that Nietzsche's philosophy was universal to every person. I think it could only appeal to a small number of individuals. Like, for me personally, I think that Camus was actually a much more influential philosopher, at least for my own thinking.
You know, the weird thing about Camus was he was actually closer to the idealistic Ubermensch than someone like Elon Musk even is.
Okay, I can see why you're saying that. But
because he took the bull of morality by the horns and be like, I'm going to steer this motherfucker wherever I feel like, up to and including abolishing the age of consent. Fuck you! I will write my own morality.
Well, so, okay, so from that perspective, right, the main character in The Stranger would actually be the ultimate Ubermensch, because he just didn't give a shit. He was like, yo, I'm just trying to, like, figure out my own stuff. Like, I don't know why it is that you're so upset that I shot a guy.
Yeah, the Nietzschean Ubermensch is someone who takes morality into their own hands and is completely blunt and forthright with their moral proclamations. Like, they don't go by any type of pre-existing moral system, like the systems of religion. They're just like stand alone as the person who will be, and with full knowledge that they are the one doing this, that they will build a new morality. From pure will to power, and nothing else.
Yeah, I prefer the thinking of Camus here, because his position was very simple. Nothing matters, as far as we can tell. Nothing matters. There is no meaning or point to life. And yet, mankind is endowed with an innate desire for there to be meaning in life. And this locks us into this sort of absurdist little box where there is no meaning, but god damn it, we desire it more than anything. And it's absurd, and the world is absurd, and you just gotta live with it. And there you have it. That's life for you, bro. And there's a point to it that it's not dark. Like, there's obviously a darkness to it, but at the end of it, it's actually, it ends with kind of a light-hearted sort of message. It's like, you know, whatever, bro, it's fine. This is, you know, there's a band. It's called Streetlight Manifesto, and they're probably top 3 all-time favorite bands of all time. They started off as a ska band. I guess nowadays they're kind of a mix of folk and ska and some Eastern European kind of influence, but almost all of their songs have incredibly depressing lyrics to them. They're all talking about fucking suicide and death and how, you know, can't trust religion and everyone is gonna die eventually. There's no fucking afterlife. Like all these pretty depressing thoughts. But every single song is an upbeat banger. It's just so fucking happy. It's just like this happy tune and with incredibly depressing lyrics, but it's happy, man. You know, it's a fucking happy song. That's why I like Camus. It's because it is sad what he's saying, but you know, you put a fucking upbeat note on it, and it changes the whole thing, makes it a lot more palatable.
I think you're trying to get at something akin to your deep affinity with absurdism.
Well, yeah, of course.
But you know, I mean, as a biological deontologist, that doesn't actually make a lot of sense with everything that you and I have talked about over the years. Like, you have a very clear-cut and very well-articulated and epistemologically and ontologically grounded worldview of what your purpose is, in a way that a true absurdist wouldn't.
I believe that I do have to take a certain page out of just standard existentialism and say, you know what, life is what you make of it. And so there is not a meaning to life making copies of itself into infinity. There's not a meaning to that. It's just, you know, as there's no more meaning in life inherently than there is in a paperclip maximizer, right? life is not inherently more meaningful. But as a living creature that is part of the system, I can say, well, this process made me, so yeah, I will accept this process as a thing that I need to continue. And therefore, from my perspective, people that don't engage in this process, people that can reproduce and don't, they are the craziest people in the world, I guess, from my perspective.
Whenever we go on tangents like this, you always end up with what we've been talking about thus far. Remember those hidden demons that you might not be aware of behind you, and it takes someone of a different perspective to start to see that?
Yeah.
Because you're so deeply ensconced in it, and you're always looking forward away from it, that you don't see the darkness accumulating behind you.
Yeah, your back is to it because your face is pointed towards people who are trying to attack it. And that means that you don't look behind you that much. Yeah, I think everyone's guilty of that.
I think you're doing that exact same thing now with meaning. Because, consider this very carefully now. This kind of requires a bit of abstract, multidimensional thinking for this to start to click.
Okay.
But whenever you say, like, the classic absurdist and existentialist arguments like, this thing is devoid of meaning, therefore. When you say the word meaning, whether you are aware of it or not, you are postulating a type of meaning, an idealized meaning that you do have, but find lacking in everything around you. So I'll ask you a very simple question. What is this quote-unquote abstract meaning that is missing from the world? And why do you care so much about it and it not being there?
So, the meaning is something that exists in human psychology. It's not something that exists out there in the ether. It's something that appears to be structured into our brains, probably due to evolutionary reasons. I think that overall, it's probably been an advantage, evolutionarily speaking, for people to be able to derive some sort of greater purpose and meaning from things. This was probably a reason why it is that, religion came to be a thing. It could be a chicken or the egg kind of scenario. Which came first? Man's drive for meaning, or the first religion? Who knows? But these seem to operate in tandem. And I happen to not believe in any sort of religion, but I still have that aspect in my mind that still wants meaning. It's entirely psychological. And I will also say that, and I've said this before, but Catholics have more babies than atheists do. People who are religious usually they have more children, they're more reproductively successful, they probably have more stable family lives, they're certainly better at getting the next generation out and having, therefore, grandchildren, not just kids. Kids aren't nearly as important as making sure that you have grandchildren. Religion has a lot of strength to it, and it's one of those things where if it actually caused a net amount of harm, then it would have died off. It would have been selected against in evolution. But it wasn't. It's here for a reason. So, obviously, religions confer benefits, and actually, sometimes I wish that I was, in fact, some sort of believer, maybe a Catholic, I don't know, they don't seem that crazy. But I'm not, and so I have to recognize that. And so instead of having a god or a Buddha at the center of my thinking, well, what do? I say, well, okay, it's this kind of abstracted form of Darwinism that I've had to come come up with myself. And I mean, that's the human condition. You know, if depending on what, it's going to happen no matter what path you walk. You're going to have to find some form of way to try to find meaning in life. And you can admit that maybe it's not universal, but you know, at least you can try. So that's my stance on that.
This is where I always get into you. There's a very insidious and covert deification of the human intellect going on with you. And I've noticed this is very prevalent in right-wing thinkers, be they authoritarian or libertarian. There's this sort of deification of the human experience. And for libertarian right people, it more manifests on the sovereignty of the individual. And for authoritarian right people, it's usually extremely rarefied and elitist and only manifests in, like, the king or the ruling body of a given system, whatever that might be.
Or the god, right? The god is the ultimate version of this.
Well, in the highest version, it would be... Well, that type of god that does stand as the highest version of that is completely transcendent and apart from humanity in this type of way, that's a very advanced theological notion that didn't exist until relatively recently in the history of religion. The gods of the older days, it used to be some type of loosely articulated polytheism, and on occasion you would actually have, like, the pharaohs of Egypt were actually considered not fully human. And a similar thing happened in Japan with Imperial Japan. The Japanese emperor, and there are some people in Japan, modern Japanese people to this day, that believe that the emperor of Japan is actually a divine entity and not even human at all.
Well, I don't think Japan has an emperor anymore.
You have to get to, like, really hardline samurai revolutionary rightist motherfuckers in Japan to find people who even think like that anymore, but they do still exist.
But I mean, I feel like it would be difficult to hold up an emperor as a deity if Japan no longer has an emperor. Like, I just feel like that would be a whole bunch of hoops that you would have to jump through to get to that spot. But
well, because their tradition of Buddhism, it wouldn't actually be that hard because you have reincarnation. So,
yeah, okay, all right, yeah, fair enough. I can see that. Yeah. So I agree that like, when you get all the way out into like anarcho-capitalism or like right-wing authoritarianism, you end up with I don't know. Actually, I don't think that they're quite the same. So, like, you have the non-aggression principle when it comes to, like, the libertarians, and that's kind of just a principle by which you ought live by. But I don't think that that's a deity. It's just it's like if I had a principle, like, just in general, don't murder someone unless they're, like, threatening your life. That's not like I'm worshiping that concept. It's just like, hey, you know, probably in general, best not to murder someone unless they're, you know, you're facing bodily harm from said person. You know, just a principle just seems to work out most of the time.
Well, that perfectly comports with the way I'm conceptualizing libertarianism. That's the sovereignty of the individual and every man a king, where, as a libertarian, you can articulate in your mind with relative ease that you, as just Joe Schmo nobody, have the capacity and even right to be able to think that and act that out in the world. Whereas the authoritarian would just say, well, the emperor has decreed X thing, and I am merely a vassal of his highness, and I will perform X action, regardless of what I think.
Well, I think that it's necessary to live by certain principles. Now, everyone has different principles. Some principles are insane and they don't work in civilization. So, let's say that my principle was, fucking murder everyone that I see. Well, I'm probably going to have a very short-lived life, because after I murder a couple people are going to come and murder me, and that's not really the best way to try to survive and cooperate with other humans in civilization. But
I'm not talking about like that. That makes perfect sense. But the distinction I'm talking about is with the libertarians. It's more of like a general thing where until you get to parenting, when you kind of have to instill that in your child, then you're acting as like a little microcosm of an imperium in a family unit, where I doubt your child is going to naturally come to that conclusion of their own volition without a little bit of tinkering on your part as the parent to instill that type of value in them.
Well,
you ever watch children steal other children's shit and poke other children in the eye, do all kinds of beat things that you have to correct them on?
Jesus Christ, man. Like, every child is a sociopath. They're born sociopaths. No, I mean, the thing is that, and I'm not the first person to say this at all. Like, this is something that's been talked about widely, but a family is communist. You share things, and like I don't currently have any kids, planning on having them soon, but like if I were to raise a child, I wouldn't then do a back charge of everything that I gave to them for the past 18 years of their life, and then say, okay, well, you got to pay it all back now that you've turned 18, and interest it's counting right now. Like, you don't do that, because a family is actually at the level of communism. Like, literally, you're sharing everything, and usually there is an authority there. Whereas at the scope of like a 300 million person civilization, that's where you don't want to have communism. That's where you do want to actually have maximum freedom for individuals. Like, you wouldn't want to live in a communist nation, and you wouldn't want to live in a libertarian family, right? The strategies are dependent on the scale of human interaction, on the scale of the number of people that are in the system. So no, you can't have you can't have an ANCAP family. That would make no sense. The only type of family that really makes any sense is an actual kind of, not strictly communist, but basically like a commune family.
Remember when we talked about the political trichotomy and the fractals of the political trichotomy that are atomized down and down? No matter how far you are to either one of those sides, you're always going to be tripartite in your nature. And I think the same thing applies to families. You're not wrong when you say that there is a communal aspect to a family. There's also a libertarian and individualistic aspect of a family, where your kids aren't going to necessarily align with you on a one-to-one correlation. There's going to be deviations. There's going to be little outgrowths of individual thought, especially if they turn into teenagers and go batshit fucking crazy. You'll know libertarianism when you see a fucking teenager. I'll tell you right now. But and then you have you're right, you have the communal aspect of it, where you do like the family activity and you share the meal around the table and everyone gets the food. Like, you don't look to your child and say, you didn't do enough work at the farm today, so you're going to bed hungry. That parents actually used to do that, believe it or not. And that was a very effective form of punishment that got your children to do things you needed to do. And you also have the authoritarian aspect of the family where, okay, I don't give a shit how much you whine and complain. You're not getting another fucking video game. Sit the fuck down and eat your goddamn cornflakes.
Well, that's so I think that's how I think a good family is one where, because the thing about my family growing up is that it was extremely laissez-faire. It was
explains a lot,
right? It was like a libertarian upbringing. They, like my parents, they didn't really they didn't give a shit what I did. I would stay out until all hours. They never focused on my schoolwork. That was up to me. Like, I was never once helped out with my homework or anything. Shit, they didn't even want me to go to college. And so it was extremely laissez-faire. Now, I also know intimately what it's like to, say, live with a Baptist family for a year, and how crushingly authoritarian that can be. And I think that it's somewhere in the between. You want to give your child like a nurturing environment. You need to lay down the law. You need to present yourself as an authority figure that knows more than them, that you have more wisdom than them. But also, eventually they do need to turn into self-sufficient adults, which means that you do need to give them freedom to explore their environment and get into trouble sometimes. Because how are they going to become fucking functioning adults if they're never allowed to have a freedom? Like, the whole point of being an adult is that you have freedom, but you also have to consider your responsibilities and the choices that you make and the outcomes of your actions and all that kind of stuff. Like,
even authoritarian rulers on the political and national level understand something akin to that. It's like being a type of massive parent of a entire country full of children, where you kind of have to allow these little communal associations among like little towns and families of people, then towns, and then little somewhat fringe communities until they get too fringe and too communisty. That starts to become a fucking problem. Religion kind of used to deal with that in its own way. And that's why the ruling class is like, this religion business. That's why the old adage, like, the commoner thinks religion is true, the philosopher thinks it's false, and the ruler thinks it's, what was that? God damn it.
It's useful?
Yeah, useful. I can't believe I fucking forgot that. Major brain fart moment on my part. We can edit that out in post, don't worry about it, but that make me look smart.
Every time.
Yeah, warts and all this time. Yeah. And I remember Slavoj Žižek, of all people, was talking about this, and he was actually talking about not merely an over-permissive parental authority figure, but a parental authority figure that doesn't allow for any transgressions, to the point where the authority figure is actually embracing transgressive acts, which is worse than allowing you to think that you transgressed against their rigid set of rules and learn a type of lesson on your own within certain boundaries. Like, Slavoj Žižek told this anecdote of when he got back from college, and he was talking to his father. His father just comes and said, "Did you do it with your girls? Have you done it yet?" Just imagine your father looking you in the face and say, "Hey, have you fucked any of those college girls yet?" There's no transgression. There's nothing that he's so fucking liberal and permissive that he's not only just allowing things like that to happen, he's actively questioning you and encouraging it if you haven't done it yet.
Well, I think that's a good move. So when I was like 8 years old, my stepfather sat me down and he taught me how to play chess. And I was, of course, 8, and I was very shit at chess, just absolutely terrible. And, he won the first couple games, but then, he made it close enough that I was, interested in it. And then he let me win the next couple games. He challenged me a bit, but, he was obviously a good enough player that he could challenge me and, let me win, but still give me a challenge. And he got me interested in the game of chess, and I still play to this day. So I think that there's something there where it's a parent should present an obstacle to the child that they can overcome, but it is still a legitimate obstacle that is appropriate for their age, position and development.
Yeah, you're actually coming closer to my argument, because that's exactly the type of thing I'm arguing for. What you're describing is fine. It's that that can't be like explicitly communicated though. The child has to think, I am getting good at this thing.
You kind of have to lie to the child a little bit.
Yeah. You can't just say like, "Hi, I fucking let you in. You actually suck at this. I had to tone my shit down so much to even make your dumbass fucking win." That's the type of thing I'm talking about, where it gets like really fucking insidious and asshole-ish, for lack of a better term.
Well, okay, so this is like this is something that I've thought about, right? Do I tell my child about Santa Claus? And I'm leaning towards no. Just like, it's obviously a lie or whatever. Like, why would I lie to my child? But then I think to myself, maybe there's a greater purpose to Santa Claus, right? Maybe the purpose of it is that you tell your child a lie, and all the other children, are also taught this lie. And the lesson really is not about a jolly old fat man gives you presents. That's not the lesson there. The lesson there is that you can't trust authority figures, and that's a deep lesson that you can hold with you for the rest of your life. It's like the people that you trust the most, the authority figures in your life, they will lie to you. And in this circumstance, they did it for seemingly good reasons. Like I remember when I first realized that, Santa wasn't real. And I was like, oh, okay. Like, clearly my parents were doing this so that I could believe in something fantastical and make Christmas more fun. And so it's not malicious, but I did learn an important lesson. I was like, oh, yeah, okay, authority figures can fucking lie to me. And that's a really important lesson. So then I think about that. I'm like, okay, so maybe actually telling your child that Santa is real is a good idea, because there's a lesson there. And the lesson is bigger than just jolly old fat man giving you presents. It's kind of like the I forget where this comes from, but it's the idea that someone on the left comes upon a fence and they go, I don't like this fence, and so they burn it down. And then someone on the right comes upon a fence and they go, I don't know why the fence is here, and before burning it down, I will try to figure out why the fence is here. Maybe that's like Santa. Like, maybe I'm too quick on saying, okay, no, I don't want to teach my child about Santa, because, like, maybe actually there's a greater, evolutionary advantage in that parable, even though to some extent you're kind of deceiving your child and being a dick to them and maybe making fun of them a bit, right?
I think there is a type of deeper meaning in a mythology like that. It's sort of communicating that you tell your kids all year, okay, if you're good on Christmas, you'll be rewarded in this, and this way at the end of the year. So then your kids are going through the whole year like with this little like moral checkbox inside their head. Like thing is like, if I want to get some good stuff, I better be good on this. Like, I did a bad thing yesterday, I better make up for it today to balance that scale back out. So it's kind of instilling this type of background moral process that's not explicitly handed to them by you personally. It's more like this mystical, transcendental, universal force that is rewarding them. And in a weird sort of way, from my perspective, that could actually bolster a deeper sense of maturity over time. Even though at a certain age they find out, okay, this might have all just been made up by us, but, all those little moral tick boxes you had from all those years, they're not as easily wiped away as you figuring out this one day that Santa isn't really real. That background process is still instilled within them and still operating without their explicit awareness, even if they find out after a while it's not real.
So I love that you and I took two different meanings from Santa. So your idea was that, okay, well, Santa is kind of like a proto-religion for children that can instill moral values with them without, like, them even really thinking about it, and so like maybe that's the good part of it. And then my thing was, well, you eventually find out that Santa is a lie, and therefore you inherently distrust authority figures. So like
there's a type of
for completely different reasons, we're both like, yeah, maybe Santa's a good thing.
There's a type of a more profound angle to that as well, in that you don't want all of the morality instilled in the child that's coming from you explicitly, because in a very real sense, we know how nature works. You're literally not always going to be there to be like the moral head and the source of morality for the child. So it's better that it's actually instilled by like this immortal, like quasi-human personified aspect of the universe in human guise that's always going to be there and eternal, where if you teach them the morality directly, it's going to be more of like a direct patrilineal honorific type system, which if you noticed isn't really that prevalent in the Western world these days.
Yeah, well, it's a lot easier to follow an entity than it is to follow a man, because a man is fallible. An entity is an entity. It exists out there in the ether. And the entity does not have to be fallible. It's easier to follow.
If you want to go the ultra-nationalist, like hard right-wing route, like that entity would be personified by something like the nation, the country, like the fatherland or the motherland. So that's always underneath you and has been there, seen the deaths of many of your ancestors, and will see your death too, but is always there. This eternal mythological land.
I think that Santa Claus, I through the course of this conversation with you, I think I've more or less revised my position on Santa Claus. I was thinking, like, why lie to your children? But now I'm thinking, you know what, man? It seems like it does a number of good things. Actually, Santa Claus is probably a bit like religion. There's a reason why it's so prevalent. It's because it clearly confers an advantage over the disadvantages that it has. So, yeah, if you're in the West and if you're, no matter what you believe, if you're a Jew or an atheist, teach your kid about Santa. Fuck it.
This is like also the trichotomy of like the religious belief that I was talking about earlier, with that famous philosophical line: the commoner thinks it's true, the philosopher thinks it's false, and the ruler thinks it's useful. You're the ruler of the family, so you're beyond, like, okay, you already philosophically you know that Santa Claus is false, but hey, right now in this very conversation, you've been exposed to a new way of thinking about it. It's like, that's actually useful. Now, the commoner would be your child who's going to actually believe it. But then as they mature and become more introspective and think, it's like, wait a minute, this isn't logically adding up. Philosophically, I think Santa Claus might not actually be real. And then when they have children, they went, well, Santa didn't turn out to be real, but when I was a kid, like, I remember all those Christmases where, yay, Santa, the sleigh bells and the boots on the roof. It's like, I remember all those things, and those were some pretty fun times, and we always got some pretty decent presents, so maybe that'll be a useful thing to teach my children, too.
Santa is kind of like the kindergarten for religion, but it's also the kindergarten for having a healthy distrust of authorities, and I think that in both ways it's beautiful. Fuck yeah, let's go Santa. I love Santa now.
Yeah, and your kids are going to have to get pretty mature before they reach the it's useful phase. You didn't reach the it's useful phase until talking to me just now, apparently, so it's going to take a while.
Well, honestly, I haven't thought that much about Santa since, like I was, I don't know, like 7 or something. So, I mean, it's been a while. It's not something I lend a lot of thought to, but, yeah. I mean, fair I think fair points all around. Okay, well, that was kind of a slight.
We always do this when last time it was biology, and now it's Santa Claus. Where will it go next time?
Yeah. So that was a bit of a tiny detour. So I have
Fix it in post.
No. I think that actually a lot of the value here comes from some of the detours that we make, because that started from is there a demon? There's clearly a demon behind the left. Is there a demon behind the right? And then I guess we got to Santa Claus. Maybe Santa Claus is the demon behind the right that we are not considering. But okay, the last just small topic that I wanted to cover while we're here, while we have the time. I think that I've identified 3 basic categories of games that literally everything can fall into. So, complete non sequitur, we're talking about video games now.
Yay! So,
3 main types. You have human versus computer. This is something as simple as Tetris, or Free Cell, or Minesweeper, any sort of solitaire game. Also something as complex as, let's say, Dark Souls, or the Elder Rings, or whatever favorite campaign video game that you have. Like, I think my favorite is still the 3 campaigns from Halo 1, 2, and 3. After Halo 3, it went to shit. But those were I swear to God, best fucking campaigns, video game campaigns that I've ever played. I'm not saying
and
best
also,
ever, but
also, all the Final Fantasies except 4 and 9 were exclusively single player.
Okay, right. So I'm only talking about games that I played. I've actually never played a Final Fantasy game. I apologize to anyone who's offended by that, but Halo was the shit. In your position, Final Fantasy was the shit, absolutely. So human versus computer, that's a type of game. Now you also have, and I think this is probably the most rare out of the 3, you have the multiple humans versus a computer. So this is like a World of Warcraft kind of thing, where like you and 7 other friends team up to beat a boss or something.
Or like a multiplayer D&D campaign like Baldur's Gate 2, where you can technically play multiplayer, but each human can control a different character in the party, up to 6. But then you play this set on rails campaign within the game, fighting NPCs and computer-based enemies.
Okay, right. So there's fewer examples of this category, but it's multiple humans versus a computer is the idea. And then finally, it's human versus human. So this could be as basic as like a game of checkers, or a game of chess,
or Pong,
all the way up to, let's say, like a Call of Duty title, or a Hearthstone, or a Magic the Gathering, or I've been playing some of the auto chess, like Auto Battler kind of games recently. Those are really fun. Oh, actually, side note, as the multiple humans versus a computer category, actually Call of Duty Zombies mode would be an example of that, where you get like 4 people together and you're just battling the AI-controlled zombies. That's another example of humans teaming up to beat the computer. Anyway.
Or Left 4 Dead.
Yeah, Left 4 Dead is another great example of that, right. So, so Breaker, out of these 3 categories of games, human versus computer, multiple humans versus a computer, or human versus human / humans versus humans, what's your favorite?
Out of video games, I'll give a 2-pronged answer. Out of video games, it's just straight single-player human versus computer. But for games in general, which can include things like card games, well, obviously those actually require another human to play most of the time, so most of my multiplayer games have been like Yu-Gi-Oh! Or Magic the Gathering, in like real life sit down across from another human and play.
Okay, so out of the 3 different types of games, I prefer the human versus human game. That's not to say that I can't get down with the other ones. I love me some fucking Halo campaign. I like playing the campaigns. I literally just finished. I know I'm like 2 years late to the story, but I picked it up like a week ago. I finished the Star Wars Fallen Order, which is kind of like a Star Wars version of Dark Souls, I guess. But like I can appreciate like a single player campaign, absolutely. But I think that I'm more drawn towards the human versus human type of game, and that's because I think that it allows for more emergent gameplay and more like there's more space for genuine creativity.
I probably couldn't really... You know what actually blends those things together really well is a game like Minecraft, where it has all three.
Sorry, Breaker, I believe that you got the pronunciation on that wrong. I believe it's pronounced Minecraft, not Minecraft. I don't know if you did that on purpose, but go ahead.
Minecraft. Yay. But, yeah. In Minecraft, you can play just you versus like digital Lego environments. You could turn the enemies off and just build shit, or you could have enemies on, and you could go to like challenge maps with like super high programmed AI by some type of Minecraft modder and actually fight or something in Minecraft. You can literally do anything in Minecraft. Or you could team up with multiple humans just to build stuff and not really compete against the humans. More like building things in the world and maybe going on a campaign against the computerized AI enemies. Or you could do PvP in Minecraft. Minecraft has all of those elements. And it's the most insanely... they're all equally distributed, and it's the most insanely popular game in the world.
Have you actually spent time playing Minecraft?
Mostly single. I got into some multiplayer Minecraft, but it was kind of meh for me. So I just did a lot of like building. I found Seed Zero. You have to type in a special word. You can actually find Seed Zero.
I don't know what that is.
Well, for any Minecraft people who are listening, just type in Creshank's Organzine into the seed. And for whatever weird conglomeration of how Minecraft is coded, it will register that as the number 0, and you'll actually be playing in Seed Zero. Minecraft people are going insane right now that I said that, but anyway.
Seed Zero, like, I know that Minecraft is a procedurally generated world. I've never played it myself, but I guess
you can get Seed 1 by just typing in 1, but if you type 0, it doesn't see that as a valid integer and just defaults to 1. But if you type in like a really tricky thing that fucks with the code, like the word Creshank space Organzine, it actually, through hex code, boils that down to the number 0, and that's a way to circumvent it not wanting to use integer 0.
Is there something special about Seed Zero?
There's several things special about Seed Zero that you find really rare treasures literally right next to where you start, and there's a really good village around, so there's a lot of like weird, quirky, special things about Seed Zero. And there's also like fucked up, half-completed biomes that are like blending together. There's a lot of weird stuff in there too, because it's not, that seed isn't supposed to exist, but the game through this exploit will render it.
Oh, so like if you're trying to speedrun Minecraft, potentially Seed Zero would be a good place to do it at.
Something like that, yeah. Okay.
Yeah, I've never played it myself, but a lot of people like that game. I know that this one YouTuber, he's not like super well known, but he's like I think it's PewDiePie. He used
to play.
yeah. Who knows? He used to play some Minecraft. I think he might still actually.
I think you mean Minecraft.
Minecraft. Yeah, I've never played the game. I guess I'm not really that much into sandbox games because it's like, although you know what, I can't say that because you know what I did do. I did play like 100 hours of Satisfactory. I don't know if you've ever heard of that game, but it's this game where basically you build a factory. It's like a 3D version of Factorio. And I did have some fun just, like, designing, like, factories and machines and shit in that game. That was actually really fun. So, actually, okay, you know what? As a sandbox game, I'm not going to shit on it because I can understand. I played Satisfactory, had a ton of fun playing that. Once you got into having to make anything past supercomputers, I was like, okay, it's gotten too complex. I can't really play this anymore. I'm not bright enough, I guess, or I'm not I'm not enough of an engineering type mind. But quite a fun game.
You know, a weird thing about Minecraft, you can actually build a fully functional, like, it's a really primitive computer. It's kind of like, what was those old computers with the cassette tapes?
Oh,
Commodore 64.
I know that you can build something akin to a Turing machine in Minecraft.
You can build a whole Commodore 64 that actually works, but it's really fucking slow because it's all going off Minecraft animation speed. So you can literally see all, like, the Boolean logic gates on a CPU. You can build those in Minecraft on this giant CPU and actually see the electricity go through the CPU through the Boolean logic gates and compute before your eyes, but it's extremely slow.
That's the, I think that is the, you have to use red dust in order
Yeah,
to...
the redstone.
Redstone, yeah.
It's all redstone switches.
Yeah, it was a few years back. I think I saw someone that had more or less created like a TI-89 calculator.
Yeah.
On that, and god damn it, that's impressive. Like, holy shit. Like,
you can also make the whole Commodore 64, but now this isn't going to compute as fast as a real-life Commodore 64 is going to, but the fact that you can do it is more of like a tick head quirk. It's like, oh, that's an amazing thing. You could do this freaking game.
Well, you know, and that's kind of my central argument about why it is that Elon Musk is wrong, that you could have infinite recursive realities of simulations inside simulations inside simulations, because every time that you make a simulation, it gets less efficient because the what do you call it? The fucking the emulator. The emulator is never as efficient as the original project, as the original product. So, I don't think that you could have infinite simulations that go down forever. And I think that Elon Musk is incorrect. But you know what? That's
here's the thing about that.
Okay, all right.
The only problem with that is, like, we haven't tapped into the quantum realm for computing yet.
No, I don't think that fixes it. I don't think that fixes the problem at all. I was just gonna drop that and say we can talk about it next time, but we could get into it briefly if you want.
Let me think. The only problem with, like, the infinite recursion, as from our perspective in this universe, is you run out of usable data at the quantum level. The waveform collapses, then you just have less than zero. You don't even have a computable integer at that point. But if you can actually use the quantum process somehow to perform computing tasks, it would actually start to work.
So, let's say that I could actually do like an infinite fractal of simulation has a simulation that has a simulation that has a simulation ad infinitum. At the highest level of, like, where the original simulation was, like, created, you would end up with infinite information density, and then it would just become a black hole. And so, given our understanding of how like physics works, at least right now, it's not a possible thing. You would end up with infinite information density real quick. And black holes are not great for at least maybe the boundary, the Schwarzschild radius of a black hole may be useful for computation, but not the inside part. So,
but who really knows what's happening on the inside part of the black hole, though? Ooh.
It's technically impossible to know. Shit, maybe that's where God lives. I don't know.
Yeah, now we've got, like, super Grug brain physics level shit.
Yeah, this is ultimate Grug brain. Yeah. Okay. Maybe we should just leave it there then.
Maybe we can get some smarter people on, like Mixo Kima, that can actually understand some of the physics and math behind this, and maybe tell us some things that us grug brains don't know about.
Yeah, dude, humble fucking biologist here does not know shit about physics. So we're both retarded, and that's great. And we'll leave it at that. So yeah, let's try to get someone on next time. We'll see if we can. But otherwise, that'll be the end of the podcast. Thank you for listening, everyone, to Promethean Tides. We are continuing to try to build this out and make it something that is decent and that people may actually want to listen to. Yeah, so that's it for me. And Breaker, I guess goodbye.
My wife's name out your motherfucking mouth.
Okay, please don't slap me again. All right, goodbye, everyone.